Okay. Um, Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome from Germany. I hope you had a nice Easter. We had a wonderful weather, at least in Germany here, and yeah, we enjoyed the few days. So thank you very much, Minghui, for this nice introduction. And I'm very happy to be here with you and share some information and thoughts about the EU battery regulation. Just let's go into the details directly. So that's what I try to create here as an agenda. So we would like to talk first about the battery categories and the regulated subjects in the regulation, then talk about the roles and the definition which is set up in the regulation, and then some things about the carbon footprint, about the performance and durability requirements, labeling, battery passport, and at the end, the challenges for the manufacturers and producers we will see. Um, let's start with the battery categories and regulated subjects. If you think about the battery regulation in general, you see here, this is a screenshot out of the European kind of law website. The regulation was decided or official on the 12th of July and is valid since the 28th of July, with a kind of transition period, of course, in different areas. And what I did here is just, if you see in the bottom, it's a comparison between the battery directive from 2006 and the battery regulation from 2023. And there you already see how huge this new regulation is. So the facts is just, for example, the regulation starts with the whereas or the recitals, as it's called, and you had 30 in the battery directive. It's now 143. So there are just reasons why the European Union set up this regulation. There were no chapters as such in the Battery Directive 2006. Now we have 14 chapters. There are 30 articles. In the Battery Directive now we have 96 articles. And if you see the annexes, it was 4 in 2006, and now it's 15. So you see it's a huge regulation with very, very much in details and different aspects. So it's very, very difficult to describe them in 1 hour. That's also why we only choose a few things out of that, which maybe brings the most important things to your mind. So let's start with the oops. With the battery category. So in the old directive, there were 3 categories mainly, and now they've built it up into 5 categories, because also, of course, the battery market has developed. So the first is electric vehicle batteries, the second is industrial batteries, and this is also split into rechargeable and non-rechargeable, but I'm just summarize that here together as industrial batteries. But there are differentiation between these chargeable and rechargeable and not rechargeable in this category as well. Then there are these light means of transport batteries, which was not available kind of 15, 20 years ago. Then we have the starting, lighting, and ignition batteries, and the portable batteries. And also the portable batteries are split in rechargeable and non-rechargeable. So these are the 5 categories, and all of the categories have different, let's say, requirements, or yeah, let's say, yeah, requirements for the different aspects. What are the regulated subject areas? Of course, there are a lot, but I've just put them together in 6 basic regulated areas. So you have this carbon footprint, which is quite new. Then the recycled contact, the performance and durability requirements, labeling and marking, preparation for reuse, and an own annex, or let's say articles for battery passport. And you see in the slide that there are different kind of articles and annexes which covers this special regulated subject area. So and if you put that together in a kind of matrix, you see at the top, so in the columns, the different battery categories, and on the left side, on the horizontal area, the different regulated areas. And so there you see that most of them are, let's say, valid for every category, but some of them are not at all relevant for some categories. So you have to, first of all, look at what kind of batteries do we have, and what is regulated in the different areas. So performance, and if you go about roles and definitions, and this is something new in the new regulation. Usually you have in the European law, you have the manufacturer, the importer, the distributor. So these are the three main roles you have. And the battery directive or regulation all of a sudden creates a new term, which is the producer. And it's a kind of a collection of different roles. And frankly speaking, if you read it for the first time, you are totally confused because you don't know what the hell are they talking about at the moment? Because the producer might be a manufacturer, might be an importer, might be even a distributor, and this makes you, let's say, it's very very difficult because it's different from the other regulation, and it makes it very very difficult to set up the own role. And I tried to kind of create a slide, a chart where you better understand, in my opinion, which are the different roles. So if you see on the left side, and I'm just talking to Chinese manufacturers, which then sells their batteries to Europe, to USA, to wherever. And let's say on the left side, you see the original producer, as I called it, this is the manufacturer. So the manufacturer who manufactures the battery. And he sells it, for example, to the in Europe called the producer. So this producer then has an own branding. And the interesting thing, it could be your own sales company. So if you, as a manufacturer in China, sell the products to your own subsidiary, so your European headquarter, then this European headquarter will be the producer. If you sell it to a customer and he puts its own brand onto your batteries, let's put it that way, he will become the producer and he's responsible then for a lot of things against, let's say, for the market authorities. So the other part could be an importer. So the importer kind of buys your product with your branding. So he doesn't put the own branding on it. And then he is kind of from his role, he's the importer. And you see on the right side, the responsibilities of the different roles are clearly addressed in different articles. So I said that there on the right hand side, the responsibilities. So Article 38 looks at the duties of the original producer, the manufacturer. So, and the interesting thing is, if the original producer, so you in China, will sell the product via online sales directly to an end consumer, you will become a producer as well. So this is the new thing that the European Union tries to combine, or let's say, set up the role that they get kind of can make you in China responsible. However, they just then create that in a practical way. But this is the idea that if you sell a product via online sales directly to a consumer, you will be the producer. And the interesting thing is, if you have, for example, here in the middle of the chart, you see a distributor. So he has no own branding. He doesn't import the product. So he buys the product from an importer or a producer. You see that with the red arrows. Then he needs to check if the producers from whom he buys the product is registered in producer's documentation or the register of the producer. So because every producer is forced to make himself available, let's say, in the register of producer. This is also quite new, and this is not in any other area, product area as we know, which is the case. So that makes you a bit more familiar with the different roles. And as I said, you have different regulated subjects in different battery categories. And to talk about every detail is quite difficult in 35 minutes or 45 minutes. So I have covered in red what I would like to talk about. So it's carbon footprint, performance and durability, labeling, and battery passport. So let's talk about carbon footprint. It's interesting that the EU have divided the carbon footprint kind of information which you have to give in three different steps. So the first thing is a real declaration. The second thing is a performance class, and the third bit is the maximum life cycle carbon footprint. So, and this follows each other, but it is valid only from certain times on. And as you see here, for the electric vehicle batteries, it should have been in force at the 18th of February 2025. But saying that, this is the text in the law. But the interesting thing is there's a second sentence, if that, because there has to be, the European Union should have put into force another legal act by the 18th of February 2024. And when this would have been issued, let's put it that way, then another year, after 1 year after this new legislation or additional legislation, this kind of requirement for the producers or for the importers should have been into place. But as this 18th of February, this further legal act hasn't been decided, hasn't been kind of put out, this 18th of February 2025 is no longer valid because it's said in the law it's the later date which is decisive. So you see, as the European Union hasn't created this further legal act by the 18th of February 2024, this legal act, which, or let's say this duty, you have to do this carbon footprint declaration by the 18th of February 2025, is not longer valid. And I try to create a matrix how to understand that. So for the electric vehicles, the original planned date was the 18th of February 2025. The planned publication of the new legal act should have been the 18th of February 2024. So this is 1 year and 2 months gone, and nothing has happened. So you can expect if this legal act will, for example, be issued in September 2025, this date of the 18th of February 2025 will be moved to something like September 2026. So all the dates you have set up here are more or less no longer valid, because as the EU haven't set the regulation for this first part of the carbon footprint declaration, it is most probably that also the other dates will not be kept. So we are in a situation that it's kind of you're looking at a moving target. So you don't know when this kind of clause will be really to be followed, because at the moment it's not really let's say set up in the legal case. So this is carbon footprint. You have to think about your carbon footprint, the declaration, the performance class, which is also not decided, and the maximum life carbon footprint. But it's at the moment not kind of to be followed because there is not this legal acts which precisely defines what the EU is requesting from you. So if we go to the next thing is performance and durability requirements. There is Article 10.1, and it's set for electric vehicles, industry batteries, and light wheels of batteries. So you have to have by 18th of August 2024 different parameters related to electrochemical performance and durability. I guess if you are selling batteries, these kind of battery categories, that you have followed that because it's already half a year has to be valid. And by Article 10.2 and 10.3, it's said that by August 27 and August 28, the two categories shall meet the minimum values laid down in the respective delegated acts in February 26 and 27. At the moment, we don't know if the EU is managing to set up these delegated acts in February or February 26 and 27. So we're not knowing which kind of target you have to achieve or which date you have to achieve. Labeling, it's another interesting issue. There are some issues which you should have fulfilled already. So by 18th of February 2024, you should have the labeling with cadmium and lead with this logo more or less. By mid or let's say by August 2024, you should have done also model identifier, name, addresses, trademarks. You have to put on the CE marks, which you most probably will all will have fulfilled already. And by August 2025, all batteries must be marked with a separate collection symbol. So that's, if you haven't done that yet, you have another 5 months to go. And this is quite clear. There is no doubt that this is a kind of required marking which you have to put on all the batteries. And this is for every battery, so whatever the category is. By next year, August 2026, there is another information which should be, let's say, which should be labeled as an information. I've divided that now into some issues which are already relevant or already valid, and some which will be valid. So, and if you see here the blue ones, they are already mandatory because of the battery directive and applicable standards. So even if this not the new regulation is not forcing you to do that, it is already mandatory because of the battery directive and applicable standards. So it's, for example, the information identification of the manufacturer, the battery category, the date of manufacture, the capacity, the chemistry, and the usual extinguishing agents. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 informations you should have given with your product already. But now there are another 3, 4 issues: the place of manufacture, which is quite new, the weight, the hazardous substance, not, let's say, other than mercury, cadmium, or lead, and other critical material, raw materials presented in the battery more than 0.1% weight by weight. So these are new, have to be followed by the 18th of August 2026. But again, already this is obsolete as well, because in the law they say that, or the Commission has forced themselves to create a label, let's say the labeling requirement by 18th of August 25. You might say, okay, this is not again already, but the European Commission says in the text, if this new act will be established, from this date onwards, you have another 18 months before it goes into force. So, and now, as we have already April 2025, we haven't seen this new legislation, but if you would put April plus 18, you're already in October 2026. So also this target by 18th of August 2026 is not longer valid, because it's at least, even if the regulation will come up tomorrow, then you have another 18 months, so it will be October 2026. In my opinion, it will be most probably beginning of 2027, maybe spring 2027. So you see here also there concerning the labeling, a lot of things are unclear because the EU hasn't followed or addressed the new delegated acts, which they have kind of forced themselves to establish. There are some other information as well, what you have to do by 18th of August of 2026. So for these kind of rechargeable industry, let's say portable categories, you have to have information about the capacity, and the rechargeable portable batteries, you have an information on their minimum average duration. Okay, and this is quite interesting, especially for the 3 main categories, so electric vehicles, industry batteries, and lightweight batteries. You have to create a kind of a digital battery passport, and this has to be on the product by the 18th of February 2027. And this is kind of without doubt that this has to be fulfilled. And talking about the battery code, I discussed with Minghui that we get into a bit deeper into this kind of battery passport issue, because it's interesting that it's not only defined in the battery regulation, but also in the in other other European laws coming up in European regulations. So concerning the battery passport, what is the reason for the battery passport? So it's a kind of a digital twin. So the battery passport should be a digital kind of creation of the physical battery you have, and it is as well. So it's a digital information. It will be mandatory for these product categories, and it should specify up to 90 parameters. So this digital passport is a huge kind of electronic file, which gives a lot of information about the batteries, about the general battery, manufacturer information, materials, compositions, conformity labels, certification. So you have to set up all your kind of product um, conformity or product certifications information, CO2 footprint, due diligence in the supply chain, circular economy, so repair issues, and performance and durability. So the battery passport has the aim to more or less have every information you have about your battery in one digital file. And that's why I just also said that, not just maybe just where is this battery passport coming from? It's not set up by some politicians or by one or two groups of people, but it's a huge consortium which has worked on the battery passport in Europe. So there you see it's a kind of foundation meeting. There are a lot of companies involved, a lot of technical institutions involved. And as you see here, it's the Fraunhofer Institute, the well-known Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. It's the BMW Group, it's BASF, it's Audi. So these are the kind of the leading consortium. But if you go one step below, you also have associated partners, supporting partners, and then the kind of an advisory council. And as you see here, CATL. So there are already also some of the Chinese manufacturers included in this development of the battery passport. And as you see here in the next chart, it's not only Europe that is talking about this kind of digital passport or battery passport for Europe. So it's also discussed, as I found here in a chart from the battery passport committee. It's already talked about in China as well, in Japan, in India, in Canada, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, which is not the part of the EU anymore. So more or less every region and every country or major country is discussing this battery passport issue. And let's say in general, I guess that most of them are quite similar discussions. But it might be, of course, that there are differences in the legislation, in the execution, and maybe also in the technical solution of the battery passport. Having said that, the battery passport isn't, or let's say the battery area or the battery industry is not the only thing who's talking about the kind of battery passport or in general called digital passport, product passport. So we have in Europe three other regulations, which is defining the digital product passport. And the most important thing is here the eco design for sustainable products regulation. So if you're in a company who does not only produce batteries, but also you're in other industries or creating other products and product groups, you have to be aware that, let's say, in more or less various industries, this kind of digitalization of the information, especially also product compliance issues, energy usage issues, will be in the long run has to be fulfilled with a kind of digital passport. So it's on the one hand this kind of eco design regulation, which is kind of covering a lot of product groups. Then also it's mentioned in the construction products regulation, and it's also mentioned in the toy direction, which is at the moment to be decided. At the moment, it's only a proposal, but it's quite sure that also toys will need a digital product passport in the long run, maybe in 3 years, in 4 years, in 5 years. And as you see here, these regulations, the battery regulation was founded, or let's say decided in 2023, the eco design regulation in 2024, the construction products in 2024 as well. And the toys direction will be most probably issued and decided in beginning of 2025, or let's at least middle. And looking at the eco design regulation, this is interesting because it's a kind of a summarized regulation which doesn't define individual products, but it sets kind of requirements in general. So what's set in the regulation, you see in the second chart here, sustainable products should become the norm, and the carbon footprint and the environmental footprint should be reduced over their entire life cycle. So it's all about energy saving, sustainability, repair, which the EU is trying to force in different product groups. And what is planned is that the EU will issue product-related delegated acts from July 2025 onwards. So there's 3 months to come. They will start with different industries, and there it will be decided what the digital product passport should contain. And in the eco design regulation, they are talking about different requirements, and that they are divided into performance and information requirements. So on the one hand, products have to fulfill special performance issues, mainly energy saving, usability, rechargeability, sustainability. And also on top of that, some information requirements. And there is that when the digital product passport comes into place. And I mentioned at the end of this slide which product aspects should be improved, but you can use these charts later on. It's all about energy consumption, energy efficiency, water use, water efficiency, resource use, carbon footprint. So it's a huge kind of environmental issue that has to be fulfilled by this product, digital product passport. And what I've did here is a kind of a chart as well. It's a kind of a time schedule. So the EU will issue a working plan. It was, let's say, if you look at the date, it should have been out last week. I haven't heard something about that. But from 19 July 2025 onwards, the EU will kind of issue delegated acts of different product groups. You see here the different product groups. It might be tires, it might electronic products, it might be detergents, or it will be detergent. And it is not clear yet which industries has to be prioritized. There are some hints, and I will talk about that later on. But it is that the EU will issue different delegated acts for different industries in the next, let's say, 2-3 years. The interesting thing is how the technical solution for the digital product passport and also the battery passport will be decided by end of December 2025. So the committees, or let's say institutions, are working on that. Also standardization bodies are working on that. And let's say it will have an influence on the kind of battery passport, which has to be fulfilled by the 18th of February 2027. And let's say looking at that and the priorities concerning the eco design regulation, there just a new kind of a study on different product priorities. So the EU has formed kind of working groups which have discussed a lot of kind of let's say consequences of different industry, and it's called the Joint Research for Joint Research Center. So it's a kind of it's a body of the European Union, and they have the European Union have just let's say forced this research center to do studies about different industries during the last 3, 4, 5 years. And this report is something like 388 pages long, and you can, let's say, download this for free. And you see in this report that the European Research Center have looked at different industries. So as you see here in the horizontal way, it's a textiles and footwear, furniture, tires, bed and mattresses, detergents, paints, whatever. So it's the final product, so the end products which the consumer can buy. And they have looked at different factors like water consumption, air, soil, biodiversity, waste, climate change, energy use, human toxicity, and had given a kind of a factor to every of these kind of characteristics. So, and you see here they have rated that with a 5, with a 3, with a 4, and the sum of this is textile and footwear. So they have a score of 42. So this seems to be the highest priority, and you can imagine that this is kind of a part of this working plan of the EU. So, and this will be the priority to issue delegated acts. So what we expect is that the first issue concerning the digital product passport will cover textiles and footwear, will furniture, tires, bed and mattresses. So you have an idea what will be the priority of the EU for the next years. The same is true for intermediate products. They have done the same more or less. So iron, steel, commodity and chemicals, non-ferrous metal products, aluminium, and also there they have done a ranking with the same factors here. And you have the intermediate products. So iron and steel, you can imagine that this will be a priority as well. So commodity chemicals, so they will force to do, or let's say they will issue delegated acts mainly on these priorities they have found out. So, and if you look at these current and future requirements for the different industry, you see that also out of the report. So these are all copies of the report. So on the left side, you have, for example, these, I just only took one example for textiles and footwear. So you see on the left side what is already regulated in the US. So environmental aspects already regulated in the US. So it's the blue thing. And so, for example, emissions from EU production of textile, mandatory due diligence for cotton, the separate collection of textile waste, voluntary labeling of energy consumption. So this is already kind of a requirement. But what they are thinking about, so what could be discussed as well, and we believe, strongly believe, that this will find out that they will find the situation that you will have the kind of the new delegated acts will cover at least some of these issues. For example, maximum limit of microplastic release, minimum content of raw materials with sustainable certification, maximum amount of life cycle waste generated, safe, easy, and non-destructive access to recyclable components. So as you see again, they're discussing what could be kind of a requirement for the future textiles and footwear to make, let's say, less energy consumption, less waste, more repairs. So let's say environmental friendly production and handling and sales of these products. So if you look at this report, you can basically think about what will come, maybe not to 100%, but maybe to 85 or 90% in the coming years concerning the different industries. So concerning the digital product passport, how will that be implemented, or let's say technically solved? And this is also true for the battery passport, because it should follow the same rule, because the regulations are more or less how do you call it in English? They are bound together somehow, because the eco design regulation, let's say comments on the battery direction in some areas, and say that it should be also true for the battery passport. So as I said, the EU Commission has set up these eco-design for sustainable products regulation, and at the same time, they have asked the standardization body of Europe, so CEN and CENELEC, they should establish kind of harmonized standards for this digital product passport. So because it should be clear how this should be technically performed. And so the CEN and CENELEC has then created joint technical committees from the different kind of countries, like here, France, UK, Germany. And they sent experts to different working groups, which are covering different aspects of the digital product passport, because there are a lot of issues to be solved and defined and created as a standard. So And if you look at the homepage of the German DIN, so Deutsches Institut für Normung of the DIN body, it said here that the German standardization body has announced that the standardization request requires the standards for a harmonized DPP system by end of 2025. So the game is, or let's say the goal is that by the end of 2025, there should be a kind of a standardized a proposal for a standardized system how to kind of use the digital product passport or how to create the digital product passport, because it's very let's say it's very important, because it should be valid for maybe clothes, for textiles, for toys in the long run, for the battery passport. So and this is maybe a quite different difficult discussion within the standardization bodies to reach a common solution. So for you, it means that you have more or less, from the technical point of view, you have to wait until end of 2025 to know what the technical solution for the digital product passport and also the battery passport will be. The interesting to just maybe, but to already kind of prepare for the digital product passport, I have another booklet for you, and you also can download that. And this is also kind of a let's say a proposal from the DIN, so the German standardization body, from February 2025. So it's more or less 2 months ago, and there they laid down the specification of the attributes and reference data types for the battery passport. So because you mentioned when I said at the beginning, there are 90 categories which should be kind of built up, or let's say described in the battery passport. And you can download this here for free from the DIN website. And I only took two screenshots out of that. So let's say, for example, the table 2 is the battery passport data attributes related to identifiers and general battery properties. The table 4 is the battery passport data attributes related to the battery carbon footprint. So they have decided quite detailed what is to be kind of explained or shown, what is the reference in the battery regulation, should the data access be public or non-public, and what is the data type, so the unit how you should be collected. So if you have a look at this document, you also can prepare, although you don't know the final technical solution, but you can, let's say, gather information, you know what it will be required in the long run. So you can very good prepare to what will most probably come in the future with a digital product passport. So last thing, what I try to give you is what are the challenges for the manufacturer and producers. So I again created a kind of a time scale, which is somehow, as I said, moving target, so it might be changed again. And I don't want to go into details, but there you see what you have to fulfill until when. So it's, in my opinion, it's a quite good overview to look at that. But it's not everything. Frankly speaking, if you create a kind of a chart with all the mandatory requirements, you most probably need such a paper. But the most important things I hope I have covered. What is now still unclear, and this is most probably also quite valid for you, what is really unclear is if the delegated act about the methodology for the calculation and verification of the carbon footprint and the implementing act of the format of carbon footprint, when will that be available? What is the information which you have to fulfill or to give? It's at the moment still unclear. What is also unclear is that if the EU will give the information or implement the acts concerning the harmonized specification for the labeling requirements. So there are some issues which are not clearly defined yet. It should be by 18th of August 2025, but we have no idea if they meet that. And if they meet that, what are the changes or what are the requirements which will there be in this delegated act? Also there, will the Commission adopt the delegated act in accordance with the article to supplement this regulation to establish minimum values for the electronic performance and durability parameters? We don't know that yet as well. So it's kind of what is the minimum values, electronic performance and durability parameters? It's still open. What is the technical solution for the battery passport and the digital product passport? As I said, it's end of 2025. We have to follow that as well. What will the final data attributes for the battery passport? Is that what the Dean has created, the final version from February 2025? Or will there be adaptations? Will there be changes? Will there be additional requests? We have to follow that as well. And this is the interesting thing, I think, especially for you, as a producer or a manufacturer, will there be maybe different solutions for the digital battery passport or digital product passport in different regions? So maybe you have to follow different kind of requirements. This is still unclear. I hope it will not be, but we don't know what the US and the Asian and the European governments will decide. Nevertheless, what could companies do now already? So I think you have to read the regulation very thoroughly and clarify the role and the responsibilities of your company. So in which role you are and what is the requirement, in which category you are, in which battery category, and what are the requirements for this special category and your special role. And as I said, it's the regulation is not so easy to read, and sometimes it's also kind of a gray zone what is meant by this legal text. And maybe it's good to discuss it internally, to discuss it with experts, because there are a lot of gray areas in the regulation still. Of course, prepare for the requirements that are mandatory and without doubt. So these CE marking and the waste bin, you have to do that. And what I would do is, especially with a product passport, is you should establish a team out of different areas in their company with a clear project leader, because the developments in this kind of digital product passport and digital battery passport, they might be huge. It's not only a requirement you have to do, but with this digital product passport, you also can increase different kind of offers, services for customers. So it's also a kind of a marketing issue, or let's say a sales issue that you can inform the consumer or the customer much better with this digital product passport than ever before. So if you take it to the other side, it's not only a requirement, but also a possibility and chance to make kind of a better business in the future. What I said also, visit webinars, what you're doing at the moment. So thank you very much once again. Conferences, associations, to stay up to date, because it's a kind of a permanent change, because I'm also following different aspects and just looking at LinkedIn and looking at different speeches and conferences, talking with different people, because there are a lot of things changing all the time and developing, and so you have to be up to date in this aspect as well. As I said, maybe also discuss with your customers about that possibility. So you're based in China, as I understood it right, and hope that most of your participants are just now based in China. And of course, it's more difficult to follow up the European regulation if you're based in China. But you have to follow the regulation in US as well, in China, in your own country, in the Asian countries. So discuss with your customers, because they will be forced to discuss it with you as well, because they will, as I said in this chart of the roles, they will be responsible, and the market authorities will go to them as either a producer or an importer, and they will ask them to have all the documentation and maybe at the end the digital passport. So you will not be able to do anything without your customers in Europe, because they are at the kind of nearer to their authorities and to the local requirements. And what I would propose is you should develop a process for collecting, storing, and delivering as much information as possible from your own purchasing, from your production, from your logistics and after sales service. Because whenever you talk in Europe, this issue is kind of environmental friendly, less energy consumption. So everything what has to be with durability and sustainability, it's a hot issue in more or less every product group. So think about what you can gather and information, especially in your own production, in your own logistics, purchasing, and create as easy as repairable products as possible. I know it's quite easy to say that, but we believe that in Europe it will be the trend to be this kind of environmental friendly production over the whole life cycle. So, and whenever some kind of companies come up with good ideas in repair, in kind of reuse, it will be very, very good for for sales and marketing. So I hope I informed you at least a bit on the, let's say, kind of challenges of the battery regulation, and hope I have you can give some insights also into the digital product passport. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope it was not too long, too detailed, and I'll give back the words to Minghui, and thank you very much once again.